Here's our second video on solving polynomial equations. I've got this particular polynomial equals 0. I want to solve this equal to 0. We know from our last video that we are going to factor this. That's one of our most appropriate algebraic ways to factor any polynomial equation. Okay, so remember, to set up that, we need to look for that first solution so that we can develop a factor and then divide. Now I can scan. Look at this polynomial. It looks kind of funny. Got a coefficient of 1, 1, 2, 2. So look, if I put a 1 in for all of them, now remember that we're going to identify those values by looking at that last coefficient. It's only a 2, so that limits what we're going to check. The only things that are going to work here are the divisors of 2. So we're looking at plus or minus a 1 and plus or minus a 2. That's it. Those are the only divisors of 2. So these are the only 4 numbers that could possibly work here. If none of these work when we plug them in to make 0, then there's no solution to this polynomial equation. But notice, if I put a 1 in, just positive 1, I'm going to save myself some work here. Put a 1, 1, 1, and then that's a 2. This is not going to be 0, right? We're adding everything up here. So I'm going to try negative 1 first. And if I put a negative 1 in here, so it's negative 1 cubed plus a negative 1 squared. Notice, that's going to be negative. This is going to be positive. That's all going to make 0. And then if I put a 2 times negative 1 and then a plus 2, notice this is negative 1 plus a 1. Subtract 2 right there and plus a 2, and this all equals 0, which means negative 1 was a solution, is a solution to this equation, which also means it's going to be, by the remainder theorem and factor theorem, that x minus 1 or x plus 1 is a factor of this. It's going to divide this thing perfectly with no remainder. So let's set up that division statement. So I got x cubed plus x squared plus 2x plus 2. And if we divide these, that's going to tell me my other factors so that I can get them in factored form. So x times, give me an x squared up here. Let's go through this relatively quickly. And notice I got a 0 here. So now I'm going straight to looking at x times what gives me 2x. It's just a plus 2. So 2 gives me my 2x, and then I gotta bring down this plus 2 also, right? I need that extra term so I can do some subtracting. 2 plus 1 is plus 2, and there's our remainder of 0 right there.
Text message.
Oh, I got a text. I gotta turn that off. Okay, so that polynomial is breaking up into these factors. Okay. That's it. Those are the 2 factors. It is a quadratic, this second factor, so let's see if we can factor that. You're looking at, it's not a nice trinomial, so that normal trinomial is not going to work. So what we're going to do is try to, since it's 2 terms, we can solve each of these equal to 0 right away. So if I solve this one equal to 0, we know that x is negative 1. But notice over here, if I solve this equal to 0, since there's only one x, I could bring the 2 over, and I've got x squared equals negative 2. And since I only have the one variable isolated already, I could square root both sides, and that would give me plus or minus the square root of negative 2. See this? You know what's going on here? We can't square root negative numbers, which means that there is no solution to this part of the equation. So which means that there is only one solution here as a final answer. So therefore, x equals negative 1 is the only solution to this equation. So what we want to do is make sure we can either, sometimes you want to factor that if it's a trinomial. If it's not a trinomial, you can solve it the way I've done here. Sometimes it'll be a trinomial that you can't factor, and therefore you should use quadratic formula to see what the solutions there would be, because that's also possible. So you need to check those.